So let's start solving the problems one by one. We will be addressing things related to Java files, streams, and one example of Java FX. So let's see the first example. When it comes to files or output, we can output things like text or binary data or objects. Objects actually are part of the binary data. Can we store objects to a file? Yes. It's very simple. You use the right output stream. In this example, the question says, create 3 objects of the employee class and store them to a file named emplo.dat. So let's see how to do this. I am about to store data in a file. I have an employee class here, very simple class. This is the employee, ID, name, salary, and that's it, ID, name, salary, and toString. In order to be able to store any object, you must add this, implement serializable. If you don't add it, you cannot store the objects created from the employee class. So how to store object? Let us see our first example. In this example, I created 3 employees, E1, E2, E3. I want to be able to store these employees to a file. I first need to create a file. The question says, store them to a file named emplo.dat. So I'll try to create a file object here, or a file output stream, but let us try to see a file object. I will call it out file equals new file. The question says the file name is emplo.dat. So this is our file and it should be created. I don't think this file exists. Even if it exists, it will be overwritten. So our first task is done now. Now, in order to be able to store objects, you need to create object output stream. This is a specific stream for storing objects. So object output stream, obj out, for example, is equal to new object output stream. And this object output stream will try to store data in the out file. The out file is an out object, and let us see how this thing works. Okay. Now they say we cannot take a file directly here. So if they cannot take a file directly, then I need to change this to what we call file output stream. Okay, a new file output stream. So now we will use the same thing here and out file. Hopefully this one works. Let me just, okay, file not found exception, add declaration. So now the main method here throws IO exception. If you use the throws in the method name, no need to put this inside the code. Otherwise, you need to put this inside try and catch. So now we are ready, by the way, to store the 3 employee objects, E1, E2, E3 in the file. How did we do it? We created a file output stream. On top of the file output stream, we created object output stream. And now, khalas, we can say object out dot write object. Look down until you get what? Write object and E1. Now the object E1 will be stored in the file. It will be encoded. And I will do the same. I will do the same here for E2 and E3. Object output stream now will store the 3 files there. three objects, sorry, obj out dot close and out file dot close. So I closed all the streams. So when I run this code, the three employee objects E1, E2, E3 will be stored in a file called emplo.dat. I will run this, no errors. If I go to the, if you don't see the file in the folder here, click on the project and refresh. Here I see emplo.dat. Of course, you will not understand anything from the data here because it is encoded as an object. So you can store objects in an object using object output stream, which is built on top of a file output stream. The command is very simple, write object. Now, how we later, maybe a year later, a week later, a month later, how we need to get those objects back from the file and work with them as objects. Since we stored them using object output stream, we can read them back using object input stream. And we will see the command is very simple, which is read object. So let us see another example. Read objects here. I will read the same object from the same file. So if you recall, I used file output stream there. Here I need to use file input stream. Fn equals a new file input stream, and the file name is emplo.dat. So this way I am telling Java that I need to read data from the emplo.dat file. However, I am not reading data the standard way. I am reading data as objects. If you get this error, you can say add throws. You need some kind of exception here. If you want one exception that helps you with a lot of things, IO exception. Whenever you do files, the method you use, you can use IO exception. Okay. Now I need to read objects, so I will use object input. Sorry, one word. Object input stream. I will call it OBGN and equals a new object input stream. And the object input stream takes a file input stream. The object output stream takes a file output stream, and that's it. So now, I know there are three objects in the file. I can read them directly 3 times. Yani, for example, I can say employee E1 is equal to object in dot read object. If you don't see read object, keep okay. So the first object in the file now will be read. Of course, there is not some kind of a problem here. Objects will be read as object, not as employee. Whatever you store, it will be read as object. When you retrieve it back using read object, you must cast it. Yani, I know those are employees. I need to cast it as employee. So now I did cast the object as an employee. So it will restore the first object, cast it as an employee, and will be stored in E1. I will do the same. Read object 3 times, E2 and E3. So now I read all the 3 objects. you can now close the streams, file in and both of them. If you want to make sure that the objects are right, I can output them to you. Sysout E1 and sysout E2 and E3. So now read object will return an object. You must cast it. Then we close it. Let us try to print them because it has a toString method, so print will be excellent. So we restore the same data again from the file using object or read object. However, the code I wrote knew that we have only 3 objects. What if you don't know how many objects? Here, what if you don't know how many objects are available there? You need to keep reading objects until no more objects are available. By the way, how to know no more objects are available? The read object method will return null. يعني the read object method will return object until no more objects are available. In that case, it returns null. So our loop will keep reading until the read returns what? Null. So if you don't know how many, you need to use a loop. And when you're going to stop, you stop when the read object returns null. طيب, maybe there are 10 employees or 1,000 employees. A good idea will be to create an array list of employees here of employee. I will call it emps equals new array list. In this case now, I still need a loop now. I need to import this. Good. Now I need a loop. My loop will be, let me just make sure. Okay, array list capital L. Okay, my loop will be like this. I will say object. This is general object. This is the thing I will be reading. While object, which is equal to object in the object input stream dot read object, while all of this is not equal to null. يعني keep reading until no more objects are available. That's it. In this case now, in this case, I can go inside. However, the while loop will be terminated if no more objects are available. So now, خلاص, I can say emps dot, this is an array list, add new employee. طيب, what is the new employee? Let us see how. لا والله, maybe we need to do 2 steps here to make it simpler. I will say employee E is equal to employee. I will cast the object, تمام? Employee object. So I am casting the object, and now I will add E. So the object will be cast to employee and added to the array list. This code is supposed to work whether you have 10 objects or 1 million objects stored. You don't have to know the number of objects. You keep reading until you get what? Null. If you want to see how we do this now, I can say for employee E in the emps list, and I will say sysout E. which is the same data. يعني I will output all the employees from the EMS list. This is the output. في عندنا end of file exception. Read 13. Let us see. Maybe I need to try catch to use. This is line 13. Okay, let's see line 13 here. I think this one here. This one needs some try catch. Okay, end of file exception and class cast exception. And let me see here. I need try catch. Let us see try. Okay. And I will put all these things here. Okay. Catch. I believe one of the things that I need end of file exception is needed to be caught EOF. And here this out EOF dot get message, anything. And let me see here. Let us run this code. Because end of file, you see here, we got the objects here. The 3 employees, we got them in an array list. So end of file exception, because I need to, this one will, this code will cause an exception. You need to use try catch. So that's why you get null in the output. So if you don't know how many, you use this loop. So we saw how to store objects one by one. We saw how to read objects one by one, and we saw how to read objects using a loop, even if you don't know how many objects are stored in a file. Next is a text output. Text output, straightforward. Only when you are doing character-based. Only when you are doing what? Character-based. The question says, using print writer or file writer, these are 2 output streams in Java. Those are used for text output. Output values from 1 to 100 to a file. Name the file numbers txt. Let us see how we need to do this. Text output. The question says output them to a file called numbers txt. So it's a good idea to create a file. Out equals new file, and the file name will be numbers.txt. This is our file. Outputting text is very simple, straightforward. And you have so many classes in Java. You can say here file writer, for example, this is one of them, equals a new file writer. The good thing here, just give it the file name. I didn't see the last question, but let me. No, it's when you use txt in the file output, when you use txt, I am answering a question. What's the difference between that or txt? TXT, the output is text. Character, you can open it with Notepad. If your output is binary data or any other data that's not text or characters, you can use different extensions of the file name. If it's a movie or whatever, I will show you this in the next example. Now we have a file writer here. Import file writer. Okay. Now you can either add throws to the function or try catch. This time I will say try catch. Okay, try catch. Now the question says you need to output things from 1 to 100. So I can say here for I is equal to integer I is equal to 1. I is less than or equal to 100. 100 I plus plus. So now writer dot, what do we have? Do we have write? Tamam. I will say write I. Does that make sense? Good. So writer, write I. Writer will send output to which file? Numbers.txt, because here the file writer is based on the file out, which is numbers.txt. So maybe here you better, after you do this, writer dot write, okay, I. However, maybe you need a new line between them. Otherwise, the output will be all the numbers next to each other. I will show you this output. And خلصنا احنا هلا. We are done with the output. Now we need to close what? We need to close what? The file and the writer. We need to close the writer. Let us see how things work here. Run. No exception, nothing. Let me refresh. Refresh. I have a file called numbers, but do you see the values, how they are written here? You did not get them because I said I need to import text, not numbers. However, Anna, what I actually need, I need to write this plus new line. Does that make sense now? Okay. This is not to output numbers here. To output numbers, you can use the formatter and format them. Let me run this again. It ran, no problems. Look at the output. Is this what you were expecting? Don't get confused between the line numbers and the value. Is this what you were expecting, guys? If you want to output numbers or something like this, you can use formatter. We will see this in the next step. So writer is very, very useful to just output text. I can do the same thing again if you want here. See this? I will do the same thing but using print writer. Very similar. The differences are not very important for us now. Okay. I will call it P numbers here. Out P. Out P. Yani I will try to do something similar, but using another subclass of the writer, which is print writer. I will call it writer P and writer P dot write, writer P dot close. So this one will create a file called what? This output, yani we are doing almost the same thing using what? However, with print writer, let me call it printer. Here, this one, printer. With this one, you have two choices. The method you use is not write, actually. The method you use is called what? Dot print. شوفوا معي. Print, and you have print line. You know the difference between a print and a print line. Does that make sense? Yani I could say print I plus new line. Here I use print. Let me run this and see if we get any difference. The file name now is B numbers. The first one is numbers. That's using file writer. If you question how to read data from the file, this is simple. We can do it next. So see the B numbers, same thing. Numbers and B numbers, same thing. Yani for us up to this level, it's okay. We said in the question, use print writer or file writer. These are the two basic character-based or text-based outputs you use in Java. If you are outputting text, you have print writer and file writer. So far, we did output text using print writer and file writer. For print writer, I use print or print line. For file writer, the command is what? Not much difference at the basic level. Not much difference at the basic level between the two of them. There are other differences, but not to be covered in this quick tutorial. Now, the question says, a third question, using the formatter class, output your name in all caps, all capital letter, and 5 floating point values with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decimals respectively. Name the file format txt. There is another output class in Java. If you want to output formatted text, if your output is formatted text, don't use the writer or print writer. Use the formatter. Formatter is straightforward. Anything you learned before from me with the string format or system.out printf can be used here. Let us see this example now. Sorry. Here. I will close this. I will create a new class here. I will call it class format output values. Okay, with the main method أخرى. تمام. Okay. So now I need what we call formatter. طبعا I need to create file first. The question says the file is format txt. تمام. So now I'll go back here, file equals new file, and the file name is format txt. Done with the file. احنا هلا. Now, exactly the same way I used formatter and print writer. Okay, a new file, syntax error. Okay, tamam. Here. So now I create what we call formatter. I will call it format equals a new formatter, and here I will give it the file. So the formatter will send data to the file. I need now to import formatter from java.util, and I need some kind of declaration, file not found, or IO exception. So let us just do this here now. IO exception. Okay. خلاص بس, by the way, we are done. Why we are done? Let me show you this. Let me just import this. Okay. تمام. I want your name all caps. طيب ها. هاي string name equals Salma. Okay. Salma Badawi. تمام. This is a name. Okay. It's a string. But I want to output this all caps to the file. No problem. Format, see the output. أو خلينا أغير الاسم. Let me change the name. Call it formatter. Formatter dot. See how you output to a file. Format. طيب. %capital S. Do you know %capital S? The one you used with string format. بس خلاص. That's it. Now your name will be written to the file all caps. طيب, what about values? Let us see here. WV1 equals, this is a double value. تمام. Double V2 equals this much. Does that make sense? We'll try to do these things. Formatter dot format. I want the first one to have only 1 decimal point. تمام. Format. Okay, % what? %1F. New line. And V1. I think now you get what I want to say here. Okay. I will do the same thing for V2. For V2, I want this one to be %2 V2. If you have V3, for example, I want 3 values. Anything you learned before, okay, tamam? Anything you learned before, how to format string or output or any value, it will work here, tamam? So let us just do this, the last one, 3F and V3. بس خلصنا, done. So now I will say formatter.close. بس خلاص, that's it. Let me run this now. A file will be created. The formatter is our link to the file. The formatter writes with format. If you recall, file writer uses write. Print writer uses a print. And now formatter uses what? Formatter uses what? مش هاي formatter, where is it? هاي, huh? Okay, uses format. Let me run this. And if you don't see the file, just go ahead and do refresh and format txt. Is this clear to you? Why we get the values this way? Is it clear? Any question why we get the values? The name is all caps. The first letter is only one, and the second and third and fourth. Does that make sense? Good, excellent. طيب. Let's go to the next question. Today is problem solving, so I solve one problem to another. Now, some of the questions were how to read data. I have data in a file. So far, we were outputting data to a file. How we read data from a file? Okay. We saw file writer. We will see also file reader. File reader is exactly like what? File writer, but it does the opposite. Read the file. Tamam. Okay. So now we have a file called data.txt. Let me show you this file. We need to read the data.txt. Actually, there is no file. Let me create one. A new file, data.txt. Okay. And this data.txt file, I will just copy anything here from the anywhere. I couldn't find anything. So, okay, I will just type my own text inside it. So any text I'm typing inside this file. Tamam, data.txt. Good. So they say use file reader. Tamam. So text reader is very similar to text writer. When you need a file, D is equal to new file. What's the file name we are trying to read? Data.txt. Tamam. Okay, good. طيب, next. Well, how to read data? You can use file reader. Okay, I will call it reader equals new file reader. And here you give it what? You give it D, which is the file that you will be reading data from. Good. So now let me just do the import and the exceptions. Okay. Tamam. Good. خلاص now. طيب, now there is a question. How to keep read data from the file and how I'm going to read data. Okay. Now we need to know that file reader reads data character by character. Reads data character by character. It will return -1. It will return -1 if it reaches the end of file. Okay, listen again to this one. The reader will return bytes. Those are characters. When it reaches the end of file, it will return -1. So now, do you understand that you will keep reading this file until the reader returns -1? With objects, we kept reading the file until we got null. Here we will do the same until we get what? -1. So just to save a few seconds, I will try to just quickly here open a quick file and show you how. Okay, file read. Okay, reader. Look at this example. File reader, it will return a character. This character, the read, will return one character at a time. Of course, the character will be returned as integer. You know, the characters are stored in using their ASCII values or Unicode values. So the function we call from the reader is read. And this function returns what? A character. The numeric value of the character, fine. But what is more important is that it returns -1 when it reaches the end of file. It returns -1 when it reaches the end of file. I will take the code here and let me show you how you can make this in one while here I would say while ch, which is equal to read, is not equal to -1. Let us see now what I did. I tried to make this one statement while, okay, here I need char ch character. Okay, so now here while character, okay, is not equal to -1. طيب. So while character ch is not equal to -1, let's see this text. Oh, sorry. So this is how you're gonna read the file. Keep reading one character at a time until you get what? Until you get what? -1. طبعا, if you want, you can cast it. If you want, you can cast it. Okay, while character which is equal is not equal to -1. This is where I got the code from here. Just read the text. Take here. File reader demo. I did so many tutorials this week. Let me just do it quickly here. Tamam. So here you say integer character is equal to read, while reader is not equal to type. However, you need to cast it, because if you don't cast the character, you get an exception. Let me just go back here and show you the code quickly. Text file reader here. I will try to do this quickly. Right. What they want from here, add throws declaration, IO exception. So look at this now. Your code will be reading character by character, and I will not cast it here. طيب, when your reader will return -1, it will return -1 when you reach the end of file. Tamam. It will return -1 when you reach the end of file. So let me show you here now what you're gonna get. Actually, the output, see, we are outputting the character. The output you see here maybe is not what you're expecting. You see numbers, صح ولا لا? This is not the file I did. Yes or no? Is it the file I did? This is not the file I did, right? So طيب, why I'm getting this? I will show you why I'm getting this. I will go to data.txt. I will make the first letter capital A and save it. Now, if I go to the file reader, tell me what's the first thing you're gonna see, which number? Why 65 you see here? Tell me why 65? Because the ASCII value of A. طيب, so the reader will read the characters in their ASCII value. If you want your output to be output as characters, what you're gonna do? You just need to cast it to a character. So when you cast the value, the integer value of the character, بس خلاص. Now see the output. Character by character. Do you see this, Yaba? Guys, do you see this? Character by character, we get the data. So the reader reads data character by character, and it stops when it reaches the end of file. The read function returns what? -1. So your loop will be while not equal to -1. This is one choice of reading data. However, the question now says, repeat the same steps using the scanner class. You all know the scanner class, right? You know the scanner class can read one line, can read one word, can read double, can read float, can read Boolean, can read integer. It's a very nice tool or utility class, and it's very helpful usually when it comes to reading text data. So how to read data using the scanner class? Very, very similar. Let me here go. I will copy some code, yeah, Juan, yeah, Khawat. I will copy some code from here. I will do the file. Okay. Here's our file. The same file I will be doing. Tamam. Good. And now scanner, see, this is new to you maybe. Scanner, scan equals new scanner. Now I will give the file, let me just call it file now. I will give the file as an input to the scanner. The difference between this and the way you have been using scanner, you have been telling scanner that scanner system in. Tamam, scanner system in means what? Scanner system in means what? Read input from the keyboard. However, the scanner constructor has many other different things. If you give it a file, it will read data from the file. That's khalas. The scanner can read from the keyboard, from a file, from many other things. طيب. Very similar to the reader. Very, very similar to the reader. You can read and it will return -1 if you want. But the scanner is very helpful. If you want, you can read line by line. Yeah, and here you can say while scan, see, while scan dot has will give you either true or false. You can ask if there is another line, another word, formatter for output. Okay, so here, while scanner has next line, for example, this will give you true false. This will give you true false. Now, what do you want to read? Let me remind you with my file here. My file is words. Do you want to read for words? Huh? Let me just change it. Ziad, Ali, Java, okay, course, okay, scanner, Wednesday, okay, no quiz, okay, Java's easy. I'm just typing anything here. Tamam. I just wrote some words. I will close this. Now, how do you want to read this file? Word by word, line by line, it's up to you. It's up to you. يعني here, if you say string, word, تمام, you say scanner, إيش, next. You know next will read the next word. And now I will output the word. If you want to read line by line, what do you say here? Instead of next, you say next what? Next line. Does that make sense? I will keep it next word. Okay, I will keep it next word. بعدين, okay, here word. ماشي الحال. And now let me just close the scanner. Scanner dot close. Scan, sorry, dot close. ماشي الحال. Now I want you to see the output only of this one. Is this the output you were expecting, word by word? Yes or no? Tamam. Good. Okay. Now, do you want to read line by line? Tamam. Just do this. What? Next line. This time you will read what? The file what? Next line. وبس خلاص هيك. You see this? You get line by line. Does that make sense? So the scanner took input from the file And now we have another question. The question says now, go back to the numbers file. شوفوا معانا. Go back to the numbers file. You know the numbers file from 1 to 100. You know that file, صح? The one we created with formatter or printer. Find the sum of all values in the file. So it seems like we need to read the integers. تمام? We need to read the integers and find the sum and average of all the values. Where is the file? Here, numbers. طيب, we need to use a scanner. Let me see, I created a file maybe before. Okay, text scan reader, read employees. Let me just create quickly a class here and call it scan some numbers. Does that make sense? Is the name clear? Scan without E. Okay, scan some numbers. Tamam. So here is our class now. Our file is what? File numbers is equal to what? A new file, which is what? Numbers txt. Good. Now I need a scanner. Scanner, scan. Okay, equals new scanner, and this scanner will read data from the nums file. Yes or no? Tamam. I just need now to import and try to use exception throws in the method. Good. ماشي. Now again, while what? يلا قولوا لي. While scan dot has next line. Has next line will work in this example, صح? أنا هلا I will ask has next what? Has next will not read data. Has next will tell you true or false. بس. Okay, بس خلاص. Integer v is equal to scan what? يلا tell me. Next what? Integer. You know how to read next integer. وبس خلصنا. طبعا, of course, you are all good guys. You know that you need to declare some kind of what? Sum was equal to 0, صح? And it's also a good idea to say count as equal to 0. And now I can say inside the loop sum plus equal v and count plus plus. Do you agree with sum plus equal v? Count plus plus. Does that make sense? Tamam. And once your loop finish here, once you finish, you close the scan. Does that make sense here? You close the scan. And now it's time to say double, for example, average is equal to double, you know why, both integers, sum over count. Does that make sense? ماشي. Sys out, I can say count, okay, count plus values, okay, found in the file. We do not see the code. You do not see my code. I'm sharing my screen. In the file, I'm sharing my screen, right? You see the code, guys? Tamam. Did you all say yes? But Noha said no, صح? Okay. Tamam. Let me just finish this code now. Okay. Next, I will say sys out. Okay, sum is equal to, okay, plus sum. And finally, I can say sys out average is equal what? Plus avg. So now let me read that file. Okay, no such element, scanner, Java, scan numbers 13. Let us see where the error is. Integer v, okay. Numbers txt is the file name, صح؟ حاس ناقص حرف أنا. Okay. Scanner numbers txt. Is it? Do you see anything wrong with the names? Let us see numbers txt here. Numbers txt. Yeah, this is the file here. and the name is numbers txt. Tamam. Okay. And what else? If you see something wrong, let me see that. Scanner, some numbers here. Okay. Has next. Yes. Has next. Okay. Okay. Has next. Does not. This is one of the things we're gonna test now here. 100 values read from the file. Sum is 50-50, and average is what? Is equal to 5,000. So now we read a file using scanner, and we read the values, and we stopped and we closed it, and we find sum and high. طبعا, of course, you need to know the files. Okay. I will just do now one final example on files, and then between next we'll read one thing at a time. One thing, yani if there is a space, it will stop. Next line, we'll read the entire line. So that was my, okay, here, has next, and it should be has next. And if it's integer or something, you need to read it as integer if it's a text. تمام. ماشي. يعني you need to use parse integer. Good. Now let me just show you one example, one last example. It seems I will not be able to do the JavaFX, which is fine. I have so many demos I did this month, and you have so many videos on that. What you're gonna do, look at this. This is an employee. 234 is the employee ID. Yes, I have so many tutorials on JavaFX. I even sent you the emails. Whatever I have, I post to Blackboard. I have 6-7 videos on JavaFX, very detailed. Let's look at this, and I prefer to you go ahead and see the JavaFX, my video. Now let me just see this thing. Let us see this thing. Do you see this? Jamila is an employee. The name is Jamila Majid. The ID is 233. The salary is 8230. Before Jamila, there is what? Nasser. And his name and his salary. How do we split? How do you split the values? Tell me, how do you split the values? I need someone to type. How do you split the values? We split the values using comma, right? We split the values using comma, yes or no? Can you, if you did Python, you know the split. If you did C++, maybe not that familiar with it. But if you used Python, you know the delimiter is this one. Now, why you need to use the splitter here? Why? Because you see, Jamila Majid is 2 words. However, this is one value. If you use has next, it will take Jamila as one value and Majid as another value. What do we know? What do we need to define as a separator? Delimiter. Our delimiter here will be what? Comma. بس خلاص. Our delimiter is the comma. Now I will show you one file. Okay. Look at this file. These are all employees. First is ID, then name. Sometimes the name is 10 words. Sometimes 3 words, and salary. Each value is delimited from the other using what? Using comma. Tamam. طيب. Now my question is, can you read this file and create employees objects from it? يعني احنا we restored employees object from objects. Yes, we can. Muhammad says, yes, we can. طبعا we can, but let us see the example. Since we don't have time, let us see the example. طيب. You don't know how many employees you have. And let me first remind you with what the employee is. Look, the employee is what, ya Juan, guys, girls? ID, name, and salary. بس هذا هو الemployee. So to create an employee, what do you need? ID, name, and salary. That's it. مظبوط. طيب. What to do now? Let me show you the code. I create an empty array list of employees. and I have a scanner. And this is my file is emps delimit. Scanner, new file, emps delimit. Any questions so far? Any question so far? Good. طيب يا Sarah. Scan, this is the trick here. Scan, use what? If you did Python, you know split, and you put the split, you put the character inside the split. تمام. Look here, you see the comma. يعني احنا we tell the scanner to use the delimiter, this one. وبس خلاص, by the way. Now you should all read the code now. Has next, we know has next. طيب, we need the ID. Where is the ID? ID first one. But you know, next will return a string. You need an integer. صح ولا لا? Right? You need an integer. You can, okay, when you use delimiter, you all know integer bars integer, right? Next returns a string. First time, next will return what? Next will return this value. Second time, next will return all these three names. Fourth time, next will return double. بعدين ايش? This, بعدين this, بعدين this. طيب, if I go back to the code now, here, okay, وين راح? Test read from scanner. Here, if I go here now, see, ID, text, name, no need to do any high. بعدين salary, double, bars double, scan next. Do you have all the information to create a new employee here? After you get the salary, the first one, first employee is who? Here's the first employee. 234 ID of Sarah. Now her name and now her salary. Is it ready to create a new employee? Yes, it is. So now what you do? Emps add a new employee and you create a new employee. You know what emps is, right? Emps is an array list of what? Employees. And you keep reading until no more employees are there. It's all about using what? Setting what? Delimiter. Without it, okay, you cannot really do that. Let me run this now. I will show you the output. Here, are these our employees? Yes or no? Now we created also not employees, we created employee objects from this. ماشي الحال. Any question? Right. I will stop here since I know many of you are busy with so many things. Where راح okay, where is the, just a second. Okay, my web explorer. Well, I really don't know. Okay, here. I'll stop sharing here. And now I'll stop recording. تمام.